Hello. I hope that wherever and whenever you are watching this, listening to this, you will know God's abundant love and grace in your life. I wonder how many times you've said or thought, "It's just not fair." It's a phrase that children who have a highly developed sense of justice can often be heard saying when it really is unfair, or just when they feel slighted or hard done by. And my guess is that as adults, we may say it less, but still think it. Today's parable that Jesus tells his disciples, and please note that, could evoke the response, "It's not fair." We read of the landowner, often used as a picture of God, who needs labourers for his vineyard, his kingdom. 5 times through the day, he goes to where those available for work gather. And each time he hires more workers, who end up working a progressively shorter day. Surely they will be paid in direct proportion to hours worked. I confess that I've often thought that it's not fair when they all get paid the going rate for a full day's work. Maybe you have too. So let's look at this more closely. Well, just as a starter, it isn't a picture of the economics of work. Remember earlier I said this was told to the disciples? These close followers of Jesus, who have been with him since the early days of his ministry, have been learning as they travel towards Jerusalem and all that will happen there, something of the values of God's kingdom. They have seen healings, miracles, compassion and mercy poured out on the poor, the vulnerable, the lost, the excluded. They have heard wisdom that flies in the face of the power structures and the cultural hypocrisy and injustice that surrounds them in society. They have experienced for themselves the challenge of living life with God's values and God's love at its heart. They have been so very close to Jesus as their friend, their leader, their example. And they're beginning to realise that what they are part of is nothing less than the fulfilling of God's covenant promise. You will be my people, and I will be your God. The promise on which everything, the whole of creation, rests. Now that probably made them feel quite special. But they still have a lot to learn about God's generous heart, and it's all in the parable. The workers hired at the very start of the day receive the agreed amount. Those hired for the last hour of the day, the ones, interestingly, that no one else wanted, receive the same. God's grace is available in its fullness to all. God's love is available in its fullness to all. You don't get more as a reward for long service or a better life, judged by our standards. God's generous, lavish abundance of love, grace, mercy and forgiveness is available for all. Whenever they respond, be it as a child, be it as a nonagenarian, that's someone in their 90s, be it as someone who has lived within the law, a good life we might say, and someone who hasn't. There are no portions of love and grace that are proportional to who we are, what we have or haven't done. There is enough, more than enough, for all. I wonder how we honestly react to that. Does it seem fair? But you see, we're told that we've all messed up. We've all sinned, to use an old-fashioned word, if you like. And therefore, none of us deserve the love God has for us. But God, in his covenant mercy, and through the life, sacrificial death, and amazing resurrection of Jesus, overcomes that kind of contract, if you like, lavishing his love on us, keeping his covenant with us. We're also told that in God's kingdom, the first will be last and the last will be first. In fact, that phrase occurs both immediately before and at the end of this parable. God's kingdom isn't hierarchical and isn't based on a reward system. It's a gift. And who are we, in the same boat as everyone else, to argue with God about who should receive his gift and what size of gift they should receive? Let me remind you of the story of Jonah, one of the other set readings for today. Jonah's sent by God, via an encounter with a large fish, to a wicked city to tell them to stop living exactly as they want and turn back to God, or God will destroy them. It's what they deserve. When the people listen to Jonah, turn to God, repent and start to live differently, God forgives them. Jonah is most put out. It's not fair. Shouldn't the people suffer a bit? Shouldn't they pay for some of what they've done? Why should they get a fresh start, a clean slate? Because that is the very heart of God himself. We're all given so many second chances in God's economy. Try to count the number of second chances you've been given. Liturgically, it's at least once a week as we say confession and receive absolution, but in reality, so many more. Let's not be people who, like the disciples were tempted to do, decide we are more worthy than others. Instead, let's work with Jesus, recognising and receiving his abundant love and mercy moment by moment, day by day, living for Christ instead of ourselves. And if you're not sure about that, take a look at Philippians chapter 1, 21 to the end of the chapter. And let's look for those who haven't been hired yet, inviting them to come and join us in God's kingdom work, however late in the day that might seem to us. Be blessed this week. Know God's lavish, extravagant love for you.